The last I checked, the raising of a child doesn't come with a book of instructions. And from what friends of mine who have kids and family members tell me, it can be a very, very difficult task at times. But as your kids become older and become adults and they go into the world on their own, seeing the upstanding people that they become can be one of the most rewarding things that any parent can experience. And setting the strong foundation of being a good person is probably first and foremost for any success that they're going to have later on in life, be it in the business world, the sporting world, or any other endeavor that they're going to take. And my guest today didn't just raise one really, really great son. He raised two of them, and he's established a foundation of them being good people long before they ever became world-class golfers. His one son is playing professionally around the world. He's been knocking on the door to get his PGA Tour card and has come very close a number of times. He just hasn't quite gotten over that hump of playing the way that he wants to at the right time. And the other is a four-time major champion, former number one golfer in the world, and one of the best golfers walking on the planet today. If you haven't figured it out yet, my guest today is Bob Koepka, and he is the father of both Chase and Brooks. And this was just a wonderful conversation. I really enjoyed talking to Bob, and I think anyone out there listening is going to really enjoy listening to him as well, what he has to say. He has a way to put everybody at ease, and the mutual friends that we have that connected us told me that was going to happen. They told me what a good guy Bob was, and I had to message them after we got done with this show and say, he's not a good guy, he's a great guy. And it's no surprise that his boys both turned out to be the people that they are. For anyone that has kids that show an interest in golf, that have a desire to play golf and even express the interest to play golf at the highest of levels when they grow up, then this really is sheds a lot of light on how one parent did that, again, not one, but two of his kids. And the proof is in the pudding. Obviously, they're both very successful. Brooks, obviously, is a household name. And it's just kind of a peek behind the curtain on some of the things that you can do and some of the things that you shouldn't do. So I think you're really going to enjoy this. I know I did talking to Bob. And please give a big, warm Golf 360 welcome for today's guest, Mr. Bob Koepka. What's up, everybody, and welcome to the Golf 360 podcast. I'm the host, Pete Popovich. So you may be asking yourself, what is Golf 360? And Golf 360 is a show that was designed to introduce you to people associated with the game of golf to help you improve not only at your game, but also your life. Almost all of our guests are from within the industry in some way, shape, or form, but some of the guests we have are from outside the industry, and it mainly revolves around the business world with a few others scattered in here and there. Now, all of the guests that we have a few things in common. One, they all were highly successful and accomplished in their field. Two, each has something to pass along that will help you in your game and your life. And three, they were all more than willing to give back by passing along the things that they use to help them in their career, and even some of the mistakes that they made so that others don't make them in their journey. So I hope you find listening to them as enjoyable as I did interviewing them, and that each and every one of you benefits from the information that they so willingly and graciously pass along. Hey everybody, I want to give a big shout out to a new sponsor of the Golf 360 podcast, and that's Affinity Wealth Management Group. We all work exceptionally hard for our money, and none of us can afford to let that fall into the dark abyss of the big box financial service firms and their jack of all trades and master of none mantra, which basically means you become a number within a cookie cutter model that's also often accompanied by massive fees. Your future deserves more than average returns and little attention. At Affinity Wealth Management, they ensure that your financial goals receive highly individualized, tailored attention from experts, not just advisors, who are in the industry to be great and not average. As a client of Affinity Wealth, you receive a customized solution to your customized life, keeping in mind your family's financial situation, values, and risk tolerance. Call Affinity Wealth today for a no-cost consultation with one of their experts at 724-754-8200. Again, that's 724-754-8200. Or you can also check them out on the web at www.affinitywealth.com. That's AFFINITYWEALTHMG.com. This podcast is brought to you in part by Just Thrive Probiotic. You may be surprised to learn that your digestive system is the key to creating and maintaining the quality of your physical, mental, and emotional health, and it's one of the body's most essential systems. That's why the majority of nutritionists today highly recommend probiotics as an indispensable nutritional supplement. As a discriminating consumer, you've probably been searching for a probiotic that is proven, potent, and effective, and you found it. Just Thrive is your best choice for maintaining a healthy lifestyle. Just Thrive Probiotic captures the power of hundreds of thousands of years of nature's design with a specialized bacillus strain formulation that guarantees survivability through the stomach and upper digestive system. Supports optimum gut health, digestive health, immune health, and delivers antioxidants. Great for adults, kids, and the whole family. Use promo code GOLF360 at www.thriveprobiotic.com for 10% off your order. All right, Mr. Koepka, thanks for coming on the show. Really excited to have you on today.
Well, thanks for having me, Pete. Just call me Bob, please.
I'm locked and loaded with Beam and Coke, and my schedule's wide open for the however much time that we need to talk. And like I said, since we talked about this, about a week ago before Christmas, I've really been excited to sit down and chat with you, and looking forward to a great show.
Yeah, I'm excited. Golf is something I love, and I enjoy talking about it, and looking forward to our conversation.
Before we get going, I need to give a shout out for the individual that probably was responsible for this happening. And for those of you who might not know, that's Paul Smith, and Paul has Assassin Golf here in Hilton Head. Bob, you probably know about Assassin Golf, as do I. It might not be out to the masses, and Paul's in the process of redoing his website, but you can check out some of his older things on Facebook under Assassin Golf. So I'd like to thank Paul for connecting us. I was with him last night at Riley's Restaurant on Hilton Head at happy hour, and we were discussing you coming on tonight. And I asked him how you guys met, and after he said it was in college and fraternity brothers, and he would start to talk about, and before he got anywhere, he'd just start laughing every time. And then I'd get him calm down. He'd start laughing again, and he would just start about your guys' college days. So you guys must have really had a hell of a time and tore it up a little bit back then.
We did. Yeah, Paul and I pledged fraternity Theta Chi together, and became good buddies. And unfortunately, Paul didn't stay for all 4 years, and left and went back to Virginia. But we had a lot of fun times together. Some things we don't want to discuss, but we enjoyed each other, and have stayed friends, and got a chance to connect up. My younger son Chase was playing in the Players Am up there at I can't think of the name of the golf course. Berkeley.
Yeah, it's at Berkeley now. Yeah, it was at Belfair, now it's at Berkeley.
Yeah, and reached out to Paul, and my wife and Sherry and I went up there for a place for the week, and went up to watch Chase play in the tournament. And Paul and Susan, we got together, and Paulie was younger, and he brought Paulie out to see if he might have an interest in golf, and walk around and watch Chase play in the Players Am, and it was a fun week, and we've stayed in touch ever since.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's a great guy. Your family is quite the sporting family. It's pretty well noted. Your uncle Dick Grout was basketball. He was at Duke, wasn't he?
Yep.
And then played in major leagues.
Yeah, he was a two-time All-American at Duke. He led the nation scoring 2 years in a row in basketball. He was the first one to have his uniform retired at Cameron Indoor Stadium, number 10, and then he was the number 3 overall pick in the NBA draft by the Fort Wayne Pistons, and played there for I think a year, maybe a little bit into the second year. But he also had gotten drafted by the Pirates, and Branch Rickey, the general manager of the Pirates, and I'm not sure who the general manager was of the Fort Wayne Pistons, told me he couldn't keep playing both professional sports. He did, I think, for almost 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
And he said it was just going to wear him down. So he eventually chose baseball and was fortunate enough to win the batting title and the MVP with the Pittsburgh Pirates in 1960. Was a National League MVP and won the World Series with the Pirates, and then again in 1964 with the Cardinals. So, matter of fact, we were just up there. He has a golf course in Ligonier, Pennsylvania called Champion Lakes, and they replayed Game 7 of the 1960 World Series on the 60th anniversary with the three living Pirates, my Uncle Dick Rowe, Bill Mazeroski, and who hit the famous home run, walk-off home run in the bottom of the ninth in Game 7, and then Elroy Face, great pitcher for the Pirates. So it was neat to experience that 60 years later and to see the grins on their faces. They acted like little kids, like they had just won it for the first time.
You know, I had an uncle that played for the Yankees back then, 60, 61, 62. He was a pitcher. And then he was actually... Uncle Eli it was pretty cool in that he was the first player ever taken in any expansion draft. So when baseball expanded, they created the Angels out in Los Angeles. He was the first player taken, and it was I don't remember how many years, probably 10 years ago. It was I think the 40th anniversary of expansion in professional sports, and USA Today had a huge expose on him because he, now that's common for the major sports. To have expansions in whatever city, the Raiders or here and there and what have you. And so it was that era. That was a cool era. And I always tell him, because he posted on Facebook a number of years ago, he played in the last Old Timers game at Yankee Stadium before they tore it down. And I messaged him. I said, why didn't you tell me you were playing? I mean, that was my bucket list, to get to Yankee Stadium before they tore it down. And he said, I never thought you'd want to go.
Yeah, that would have been a fun thing to go watch. I teased my uncle, matter of fact, because how they got the video. Apparently, Bing Crosby was a minority owner with the Pirates, and when he had passed away, they were going through his house, and they found a videotape of Game 7, and so they sent it back to the Pirates. And I told my uncle he got a single in the 8th inning. And I joke with him. I said, that's the only time I'd ever seen you at bat, because I was just a baby. I was an infant, know. And when that happened, and I said, you had a pretty nice swing for back in 1960. We were joking about it, but I said, yeah, it's the only time I'd ever seen you at bat, and you got a single. So I said, good for you. You
were pretty good at baseball yourself, weren't you?
Yeah, that was my love growing up. I did pretty well. I went on to, I played through high school and then went to West Virginia Wesleyan, where Paul Smith and I met, and I pitched there for 4 years. Left-handed pitcher, and had a little bit of success, but obviously there was a lack of talent there to get further. And I always enjoyed baseball. It was my first love, and the only thing I guess that I regret about it is, when you went to college, they did a DH, and they would never let you hit. And I was always a good hitter, and unfortunately, when you pitched, they thought, stick to pitching, you're not going to hit. And, that was the only part I didn't care about. I never got one at bat in college. So, did
you ever get the nerve to call your uncle out and say, I think you can blow it by you, old timer, and get him out on the diamond a little bit and challenge him?
It's funny you say that. I used to go up. My brother played football. But once baseball season was over, he would go right into football, and I didn't play football. So I would typically go up to his golf course and hang out. He had 3 girls. So I would go hang out with my cousins, and I'd work at the golf course, and I'd, go, hit balls at night or whatever. And somebody was asking me about, pitching and this and that. And so, I heard you threw a no-hitter, I heard you did this and that. I was probably 13 or something like that. And, so my uncle was probably in his mid-40s. And, he was the type that was, he was the athlete in the family, and still had the ego that no one was as good as he was. And when somebody was, bragging about the fact that I threw a no-hitter or whatever, One day I was in the pro shop and somebody mentioned it, and my uncle said to me, he said, "Well, let's kind of see what you got." And so we went out into the driving range, and he had the baseball bat out, and let's see what you got. And so I was trying to pitch to him and see what he could do, and I got a few of them by him, but he definitely he tagged a few of them. So it was the only time I ever had a chance to face a major leaguer, I should say.
You didn't give him any brushbacks or chin music first couple, did you?
No, I was afraid because I was staying there with him. So if I did that, I would never play.
There was, I mean, if anyone surfs the internet, and I think, Brooks's story is very well documented, but he played baseball as a kid. Did both your boys play, and did they follow you into baseball because of your passion for it? Or how did that come about?
Yeah, when they were little, I got them involved in pretty much every sport. The first thing they did was they played soccer, and then they went into baseball season. They did a little bit of roller hockey, and they played basketball. But baseball was something that I loved, and it was my passion, other than golf at that point. And so I got them interested in it. But both Brooks and Chase were pretty good, baseball players. I mean, really, that was Brooks's first love. I used to take him to the ball field and just hit him grounders. I can remember when he was he got selected for a T-ball team. The guy that coached his soccer team picked him for baseball, and he was 5 years old. And at the time, T-ball, they were taking 5 and 6-year-olds, and he showed up at the first practice, and I was there to help whatever Coach Ray needed. And he asked Brooks, "What position do you play?" And he said, "I play shortstop." And Ray looks at me and he's like, "My son plays shortstop." And I was like, "Well, then tell him short's taken, and tell me to go to second base." And he asked me if I would work with the two of them, and I said, "Sure, I'll work them." And so I took the middle infielders and was showing them how to field the ball to the right and the left, and how to toss it over to your partner to turn a double play. And I'll never forget one T-ball game. They turned 4 double plays.
Wow.
And the parents in the stands were upset, and they were yelling at the umpire that you're not supposed to do that. And the umpire looked at him and was like, "What do you want me to do?" And he said, "It's not against the rules." And they were just amazed that a 5 and 6-year-old had that much hand-eye coordination. And I would teach him, if they hit the ball to the right, to field it with the soft hands and just lay it over the bag so that the other guy could come across and and catch it and fire it right to first. And he loved baseball and was very good at it. And when he was 7, he took up golf, and we used to go from playing a doubleheader to running for a 4-hole tournament or a 9-hole tournament at the same county park. And he loved golf, and he played baseball too. He was 12, and then decided he wanted to give it up and just focus on golf. Chase played baseball until he was like 8 or 9, and then decided he wanted to just focus on golf as well. So
in today's world, everything seems to be so specialized with travel soccer and travel baseball and travel. You fill in the blank, and it seems that everyone's specializing their kids. The ages seem to keep coming down lower and lower. In looking back, I mean, the data out there is clear that it shows that you should put your kids into any sport that they want to, or get them involved in a lot of different things so they can have a more well-rounded development. In looking back, in your opinion, do you think that helped both your boys in their golf game and in playing other sports?
Oh, I definitely do. I mean, as I think, golf's such an individual sport.
Mm-hmm.
The only time you play it as a team is when you're in high school or in college. And I think, playing as in a team sport is very important, because you have to learn that no matter what you do, you're not going to have the sole outcome of the game. You have to rely on your teammates to help, and you have to understand that you're going to win, you're going to lose, and learn how to deal with that, how to compete, and how to accept both winning and losing. And I think you develop different hand-eye coordination playing different sports. I know people are wanting to specialize and do things, but you know what? You don't know what your kid's going to be good at, or what
right.
what he or she's going to like to play. And when both my kids told me they didn't want to play baseball anymore, I remember coming home. My wife said to me, I know it's bothering you, but it's not what they want. And I said, I know. I said it hurts, but I have to accept it. And if I wanted my kids to be golfers and they didn't want to be, they wouldn't be where they're at today.
Mm-hmm.
That'd be something that they wanted to do. And I think as a parent, you have to learn to step back and allow your kids they'll figure out what sport they want to migrate to. Even if they're very good at 2 or 3 different sports, there's one that they're going to have a love for, that they're going to be willing to work at, and you have to let them find that sport. And it may not be what you want, but if it's what you want, it's not going to work out. If it's what they want, there's a chance it can work out.
It's interesting that you say that your wife kind of brought that different perspective to it. I remember my mom telling me that when I was a kid, because I eat and I write left-handed, but I do everything else right-handed. Throw, play golf, bat, you name it. And I'm pushing 50, so back in the 70s, when my dad saw I was left-handed in eating and writing, well, not even writing yet, but just eating, my mom said he was all irritated. It's like, well, how's he going to be a golfer? Because my dad was a golf nut. How's he going to be a golfer? They don't hardly even make left-handed clubs. And she said, well, why don't you just let him figure out what he wants to do before you start pushing him into golf? And then I had Matt Reagan on last week, who is the partner in Operation 36. And he was discussing the helicopter parents, is what seems to be the tag phrase today. Of people, the parents just constantly over top of their kids. And he said that the difference when the dad caddies versus when the mother caddies is astronomical, and that the kids play so much better because their moms don't get in the way. They just encourage them like mothers do. Hey, you're doing good. Keep trying. Keep going forward. Don't worry, you made a mistake. And the dads are like, well, why'd you make the mistake? Why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do that? And it's out of love and the desire for your children to do well, but you got to, at some point, say, okay, what's best for my child, and what do I have to do to make that happen? And it's cool that I bring that up, because it's cool that a lot of parents aren't like you, that they would say, okay, I need to let them do their thing and then support them the best I can in that capacity.
I made my share of mistakes. I think as a parent, you just want the best for your kids. And, there's no book on how to do it the right way. You just got to kind of do what you do. And, there's times I ask them the wrong question or whatever. But, I think the main thing is parents is make sure that your kid's having fun in whatever sport it is.
Mm-hmm.
If it's golf, it's got to be fun first. And it's okay. Like, I'd have parents say, well, my kid doesn't want me to go out and watch him play in the tournament because he gets too nervous if I'm watching. And I'm like, wait a second, you're paying the entry fee. I said, your kid shouldn't tell you not to play. If he's worried about playing in front of anybody, how's he ever going to be able to, play at a high level?
Right.
He's going to go watch him then, and I would say, look, go watch him, because they're going to make mistakes. And the only way for them to get better is you got to talk about, the decisions they made. Maybe they've got a downhill lie and they got to hit it over the water, to an elevated green, and they don't know, and they hit it and it goes right in the lake in front of them. And, or they take a lob wedge out when they're just off the edge of the green and the pin's in the back and they got all this green to work with. And say, did you ever think about, maybe taking a 6-iron and bumping and running it? I'm like, no, I just took my lob wedge. And, I'm like, well, next time you're in that position, maybe you should try a different club, because you've talked to Tony Jacklin, and Tony said get the ball rolling as quickly as possible. He gave a speech at one of the kid events my both boys played in when they were young. And I walked both of them up there, and I said, this gentleman's played golf at the highest level. And I said to him, I said, these two young men have an interest in golf. Is there one piece of advice that you would give these young men about golf? And he said, get the ball rolling as quickly as possible. And so I used to refer back to that, why are you taking a lob wedge out? What if it spins? What if it doesn't spin? How do you know? And
yeah,
said,
it takes a bounce coming
bump
in from
run,
so high. Right, yeah.
A bump and run is not going to have any spin and let it release back the hole. So get the ball rolling. More putts go in than balls flying directly in the hole. So have it roll and give it a better chance. And so I think, kids are going to make bad decisions, and but you can accept the fact they made a bad decision, but don't allow them to keep making the same bad decisions. So if you talk about it in the car on the way home, and next time they're in that same position, maybe they'll choose a different club and approach it differently.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting that the development of kids, be they a child or a student or what have you, and the age differences. So I had Susie Whaley was on the podcast. Oh God, it's got to be pushing a year ago now, and her daughter had just turned professional, I think, when she was on. So she had played at North Carolina. She had been a very good junior golfer, and Susie had gotten to the point where, or at least had learned that, when your child is in a big event and let's say they're in contention and they 3-putt on the back 9 on the 12th hole, the first thing when you get into the car, you don't say, why did you 3-putt the 12th hole? It's not like they meant to do it. And so she was discussing on how you become more of a cheerleader and, hey, don't worry about it. I mean, they were already beating themselves up enough. And then about 2 months ago, I had Krista Dunton on, who's a top 100 coach, and her kids are, I think they're around the 9 to 11 age, and Krista is still in that coach mode where she wants to help fix it. And so we were discussing the differences in the development of the parent and the child athlete, and how you have to approach that differently, and how that develops over time. And obviously, you've done a very good job of that.
Well, it's interesting when Brooks really took a liking to the game. I called a friend of mine I used to play in some pro-ams with, Warren Botke. And I said, I called Warren and I said, hey, Warren, I said, when I asked you a favor, and he said, yeah, what's that, Bob? And I said, well, my son Brooks is kind of taking a liking to golf. And I said, he got some pretty good hand-eye coordination, and I've got him where he's hitting it, pretty solid and everything. And I said, I was wondering if you'd be interested in being his instructor. And he said, definitely, I'd definitely be interested under one condition. And I said, what's that? And he said, well, I'm the coach and you're the dad.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, well, you know what, Warren, I have one condition back at you. And he said, what's that? I said, that I approve that, but the condition is the fact that I get to come to the lessons so I can see what you're teaching him. So when you're not around, I can make sure he's doing the same things that you're asking him to do. And, it is hard. Sometimes you got to be the parent. Sometimes, you got to just step away. And, golf especially is a sport you're going to lose a lot more than you're going to win.
Mm-hmm.
And I have one story I can relate with Brooks. When he first started playing, he would always play in like 9-hole tournaments. We had an 18-hole tournament. He was going to play up Vero Beach, and they were going to play 9 holes on a Saturday and 9 on a Sunday. And there was 2 individuals that he could never beat. And lo and behold, on Saturday, he goes out and shoots the low round. And normally, he'd have won the tournament, but we got 9 more holes. And he was so full of himself that Saturday night. We walked down the beach to an ice cream shop, and guess all the other kids that were in town for the tournament all show up there, and they're nudging him and going, "Hey, Brooksmead, you got the lead." And they're all like, "Hey, you're beating so and so and everything." And he was so full of himself and everything. It was kind of fun to watch. And of course, you go out on Sunday, and you still got to finish the job. And there's 9 holes to go, and slowly you could just see the lead evaporating, and these 2 guys, and all you could do is just walk along and watch, and of course you want every shot to go in the hole, you want every putt to disappear, and as a parent, we all want the same thing, but there's nothing you can do. And I can remember he goes in to sign his scorecard and everything, and he was 9 years old, and he signs his scorecard, and he starts walking out of the tent, and he sees me, and he comes flying right at me, and so I kind of bent down a little bit, and he just jumped right in, into my chest, and his legs wrapped around my hips, and his arms around my shoulders, and he was bawling over my shoulder. And I said, "What are you crying about, son?" And he's sniffling, going, I lost. I said, I know. And I said, "Hurts, doesn't it?" And he's like, yeah, it really hurts. And I said, "Well, son," I said, "just remember this feeling of what it feels like when you lose. Because let me explain one thing. You have to learn to lose before you can learn to win." And I said, "And this feeling hurts a lot." And I said, "Don't ever let it happen again. Don't ever get this feeling again. Figure out that you want to work hard enough to get that feeling of enjoyment of winning." And, I don't know if that made any difference or not, but I just remember that. And, he finally did eventually win one, and obviously has gone on to, to great success. But I think it's not always about winning. I think it's about playing, giving the best that you've got. And if that's coming in third or coming in fifth or winning, as long as you tried and gave it the best you got, that's all you can ask for.
Right.
There's a certain not yours.
Be very curious to because that age that and I could have the ages wrong, but it's in that range. Let's say 8 to 12 years old before you get to become an adolescent. The developmental years, and 9 years old being in particular, is being a very developmental age for boys and girls. And I would be very curious to ask him that if that tournament or anything that he learned at that time helped him later on in his career, even so far as to the final day at Bethpage when he had the big lead, and then it started to slip away, and because if you're 9 years old and you learn that, then something is building in you for years and years and years, whether you realize it or not, and in a positive way, especially in his case. And I would be very surprised if somehow he didn't say, yeah, I kind of reflected on that at one point during the round or maybe prior to the round, but utilize that failure, so to speak, later on in his life and his career to overcome a similar challenge as he developed. And of course, obviously winning a PGA is probably a little bigger thing than winning a junior golf tournament.
Yeah, but I think all those experiences that you have, whether they're, at the Little League level or, American Legion or college ball or, whatever it might be, in the AJGA or just your state junior tournament, all those things are important because those are experiences that you can reflect back on.
Mm-hmm.
And each one's a learning lesson, whether you win or you lose. You have to learn from both, not just one.
Right.
And I think that whether he or whatever admit that helped him get over that day at Bethpage Black or not, may or may not, but maybe it did have an impact on him at some point.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think anybody knows the true answer, but I think the more you are put in positions to fail, the better off you are. because eventually you'll overcome that. And
Yes.
then more times you are in positions to win and you overcome that and you do win, you have the confidence that you can finish it and get the job done. So you have to learn from both your failures and your victories.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree 100%. Where did the golf connection come from for your boys? Did you get into golf at some point, and then they kind of followed Dad around, and hung out with you? Was it a friend of
Yeah,
theirs, or what? How did that evolve?
it was. When I got out of college, I played a little bit of travel softball and stuff, and then I kind of got hooked on golf. And I had moved to Pennsylvania, and I was about a half hour from my uncle's golf course. Didn't know anybody, so in the summers I would drive over there and I'd work at the golf course, and then I'd go out and play. And I kind of got the bug. And when I moved to Florida, I slowly, stopped playing softball and just focused on golf. And when the kids were little, their stepmom Sherry used to bring them down to watch me play in the club championships or in the match play, finals or something. And they'd ride around the golf cart and watch me play. And then after we were done, we'd go have lunch, and then I would take them to the range and hit balls afterwards. That was always our deal. And I think most kids just want to be like their parents,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's their mom or their dad. They want to do what they did, and so they kind of took up the game because I enjoyed it. And then it became a family thing. I mean, we used to laugh. I have a funny story. We would always play in the Toys for Tots tournament at the club, where you bring toys as your entry fee to give to those that weren't as fortunate, so that they would have a nice Christmas. And Chase was probably, I don't know, 2 or 3 years old, and so Brooks was 5 or 6, and my wife and I, we'd have our Santa Claus hats on, and we go out and play in the scramble tournament. I remember Chase was so excited; he was dancing and jumping around, coming off the green. And Sherry said, what are you so excited about, Chase? And he said, it's the first time I've ever been under par. And, he got to hit the first shot. He got to make the putts. Even if it was only, 6 inches away, he was just so excited he was making them and everything. And didn't want to roll in the moment and say, Chase, at a scramble, you're supposed to be under par. But, we made golf fun. And, as they got older, it got competitive. And the one thing I will say that I still believe in, I never let my kids win at anything. If we were playing cards and they were 3 years old, I'd beat them like a drum.
Mm-hmm.
If we went on shoot hoops and play horse, I'd never let them win. When we got on the golf course, I'd never let them win. And people are like, aren't you worried about their feelings and, their egos and everything? And I was like, no. I'm not going to let them win, because when they go out in the real world, no one else is going to let them win. Their friends aren't going to say, "Okay, Brooks, we're going to let you win today."
Right.
Okay, we're going to let you win the tournament today because it's your turn.
Mm-hmm.
And they used to get upset, and I always would tell them that's the way my dad and mom treated me. They, if we played cards or we played golf or whatever we did, they never let me win, because I had to learn to compete. And when you get out in the real world, even if you're not playing sports, you go for a job interview and you don't get the job, you come home and your mom says to you, what happened, Pete? Like, I don't know. I thought I was supposed to win.
Right. Which is very rampant in
Every,
today's society.
Exactly. Everything you do is a competition. If you're in sales, you're trying to outsell the competitor, whatever it might be. And the only way you're going to be successful is you have to figure out a winning formula. And that's what I used to tell my kids. If you want to win, you figure out a way. And I beat them like a drum.
Mm-hmm.
And, I remember, I don't know, Brooks was probably 10, 11 years old, and he birdied the second hole, and he was skipping back to the golf cart. And I was like, what are you so excited about? Oh, nothing. And I'm like, oh, I know exactly what you're thinking. And he said, what do you mean? And I said, you think you're beating me? And, he had that look on his face. And I said, my baseball coach in college said, never wake a sleeping dog. Because the son of a bitch may bite you, right?
That's right.
And I said to him, you just woke a sleeping dog. And I birdied the next 4 holes. I had him in tears. But yet we got to the 9th hole. He had a 5-footer down the hill. And I wanted him to focus on that putt. He wasn't winning the match. He was probably 4 or 5 down in the 9 holes, but I wanted him to focus on that putt. And I told him, I said, if you don't make this putt, you're going to be doing dishes tonight. And, he was probably going to do the dishes no matter what.
Right.
But I wanted him to understand that putt meant something. And, and he was grinding over it and stuff, and he made it. He was excited because he didn't have to do dishes, but maybe I didn't have him do the dishes, but I had him do something else anyways. So,
when you foster the development of that with your kids, and you had the 2 boys, how did you referee that as they grew to make sure that competitive nature didn't cross the line, in particular between the brothers? Because there's always that sibling rivalry. that younger brother wants to beat older brother because he's obviously accomplished more because of the age difference, at least while you're young. How did you manage that?
I don't know if I managed it well or not. I definitely had those times. I'll never forget. Brooks was going off to college. He had to go to summer school at Florida State. The summer before his freshman year, our coach wanted to go up there and get acquainted and everything. And it was the weekend of Father's Day, and I was taking Chase up to North Carolina to play in a golf tournament in Cornelius, North Carolina, along Lake Norman. And on Saturday, we were going to leave. I think we were leaving Sunday to drive up. And so I had to get some things done on Saturday, and they said they were going to go out and play. And typically, Chase would always play shorter tees than Brooks. And that day, they decided to play the same tees. They're going to play the tips.
Mm-hmm.
And I stayed home and was doing some work in my office. And they played the back 9 first. And apparently, Chase beat Brooks on the back 9. They made the turn, and we lived on the 5th tee box. They played the front 9, came back, and I remember they came in the house through the back patio, and Chase was skipping out of the golf cart all the way in the house. I knew something good happened and everything. And, Brooks comes in the sliding glass door behind him with a funny look on his face. And I'm like, hey, how'd everything go? And Chase is like, oh, went great. And I said, oh, that's good. I said, you played well? And he's like, yeah, I beat Brooks. And I looked at Brooks and I'm like, did he? And he's like, yeah. He made a putt on the 18th hole, to beat me. I think Chase shot like 36 and Brooks shot 37. And I said, oh, that's great. And Chase immediately just started going down the hallway to his bedroom. And Brooks says, well, what about the front 9? And Chase didn't want to stick around for that. I'm like, what are you talking about? And I had to holler at Chase to get him to come out. And I come back into the family room, and I said, so what happened on the front 9? Oh, I don't want to talk about that. And Brooks looked at him and said, he said, I shot, like 30, 33, and he shot like 38 or something like that. And Chase was all upset and pouting and everything. And I said to him, well, what are you upset about, Chase? How would you like it if you got beat by 5 shots on the back 9 and everything? And I'm like, well, Chase, you're not supposed to beat him. He's 4 years older. And I said, you got him on 1-9, but he didn't want to finish the story. He only wanted to tell the good part. And, they were competitors. They went at each other like cats and dogs, which is really what I think made them both better. They pushed each other.
Mm-hmm.
And it's no different than my brother. I had an older brother by almost 4 years. All I ever want to do is beat him, and I probably can remember every time I did. Um, and it made me a better player because I had to work harder to keep up with him and his friends.
Right. What were the differences, or what are the differences in their personalities, and how might that have affected how you treated one versus the other, if it did at all?
Yeah, they're two different kids. Everyone always talks about how big and strong Brooks is, and they don't realize he was not always that way. He was never the big kid and everything. He always had good clubhead speed, but he's really grown and really filled out. He's got a bigger frame than Chase.
Mm-hmm.
Brooks goes 6'1", maybe 210, 205, and Chase is probably 5'10", maybe 155 to 160 pounds. So Chase can't overpower the ball like Brooks does. And they have different mentalities. Brooks would finish, next to last in a tournament and tell me how he was better than everybody else. We'd be riding home in the car, and I'm going, well, you sure didn't prove that today. And I was like, well, I'm still better than everyone. I'm like, well, then you better show it, the next tournament. Where Chase could win a tournament, and then sometimes he would tell you that, well, I didn't play that good today. And I'm like, Chase, you won. And I think sometimes he needed a little more positive reinforcement than Brooks did.
Mm-hmm.
And they, one thing that they have in common is they both had the same college golf coach for 2 years. Chris Malloy was the assistant coach at Florida State that got Brooks to go to Florida State. And at the end of Brooks' sophomore year, he took the head job at USF, and he was there for 2 years and recruited Chase to go there. And it was amazing talking to him because he understood the differences, and he knew he could ride Brooks really hard. And, harder than anyone else on the team, even if he was a freshman, because Brooks could handle it.
Mm-hmm.
And he was hard on Chase. But he said, I had to treat it different. I was hard on him because even though Chase was a freshman, he was the best player on the team. And he rode him hard to show the other players that he wasn't showing favoritism towards Chase. Because they thought if he'll ride the number one player hard, then I need to step my game up. But he also knew that he couldn't that he did with Brooks because Chase was a little more sensitive in those areas and needed a little bit more, pat on the back than maybe Brooks did. So it's interesting, and I think everybody, you don't raise your kids any different. You think they're all going to be the same. They're going to have the same personalities, but they're far from it.
Do you think that if Brooks has a harder exterior and Chase maybe has a softer exterior, that the interior is opposite, where Chase might be a little harder on the interior and Brooks is a little softer on the interior? Are they? And they're brothers, and they come from the same family, of course, the DNA and so forth. But they're the same, but they're opposites. Is that and I only say that because I have a younger brother. My brother's about 5 years younger than me, and we seem to be that way. At least that's what my dad's assessment is of the two of us.
I never heard it put that way, but yeah, that's possible. Because what you see on the outside isn't always what's in there, and I know they both have the desire and the work ethic to succeed.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that internally they both want it bad. But yeah, that's very possible. It could be totally different,
right,
on how they handle things. And sometimes people want to have a certain um, persona to the public. Like, everyone thinks Brooks is this tough guy and very uh, oh gosh,
Macho.
straight.
Like,
Yeah, macho.
right.
Where you know that's not always the way he is off the golf course,
Mm-hmm.
but that's the way he deals with competition. And so I could see that analogy.
Mm-hmm. You, both of them had good college careers. I think Brooks won about 3 times and Chase won about 4.
Yep.
When did each of them come to you and say that they wanted to be professional golfers? I thought
Well,
in talking to Paul,
funny.
who's your good friend, I thought that'd get that reaction from you.
Well, the first time Brooks mentioned that, he was 12 years old in the 6th grade. Um, he made the Wellington Christian High School team as a 6th grader,
Mm-hmm.
and might have been the second or third match. We were riding home, and in the back seat, he made the announcement that he thought in 4 years he would drop out of school and turn pro.
I like it. I knew I liked that guy.
Yeah, I immediately pulled the car off the side of the road, and my wife Sherry said, "Oh my God!" I mean, that look on your face. I put the car in park and I turned around and I said, "Oh, you think you're something, huh? Because you made the high school golf team as a 6th grader." I said, "Let me tell you something, kid. You will not drop out of school in 4 years. You'll finish high school. You'll go to college for 4 years. If you're good enough, then you'll turn pro." Um, he just had this attitude that, he was he was all that, and he was hitting driver on all 9 holes. He had hit driver on the par three. Um, and but I never had the vision that they were going to be professional golfers.
Mm-hmm.
I was excited when they were getting recruited. Both, obviously, I learned a lot going, through the experiences, with Brooks. But I remember when he first started getting letters from college coaches, I was like, wow, he could probably go play college golf, Division I. This is cool.
Mm-hmm.
And so when it came through that same experience with Chase, I was much more knowledgeable and knew what to expect. And even through college, I didn't ever feel like, Brooks was never a superstar. He was always very good. And, he was ACC freshman of the year, and all conference and all that. But he'd be, third team All-American, second team. It was never first team All-American. He was never the one that you're like, oh, that guy is going to be, a top-notch pro.
Right.
And until his senior year, there was agents that were following around at tournaments and stuff, and they'd come up to me because they thought, oh boy, the quickest way to get to Brooks is to, be buddies with his dad. And I remember one guy saying to me, he said, "Your son's going to be a really good pro." And I was like, "Oh yeah, what makes you say that?" He said, "Well, he averages over 4 birdies around. And anybody that's averaged over 4 birdies around in college, is made the transition successfully to the pro level." And I was like, "Oh wow, maybe this could happen."
Mm-hmm.
When Chase decided, I would say it was a little bit later. It was probably more freshman, sophomore year in high school. He would say he wasn't a long hitter, and he was right in the hunt. I think he finished 4th in the Florida High School State Championships as an individual his freshman year. And Lily had a chance coming down the stretch. And I think, he said, I want to go play college golf, and I want to be a professional golfer. And, I was just honest with both my boys. And like you said, if that's what you want, understand you got to work hard to get there. No one's going to give you a free pass just because you want to do it. And kudos to both of them that they were willing to put the hard work in, and they made a lot of sacrifices. Not going and hanging with their friends and putting the time in and working hard at it, not only on the golf course, but in the gym and doing the various things they needed to do, to be successful.
Brooks had success soon out of college on the European or Challenge tours, and then European tour, and steadily improved. And his story is well documented, that there was a time when he didn't seem like he was enjoying himself, and it was reported that he considered saying, hey, maybe this isn't the path that I'm supposed to be on. Were there any certain conversations as his dad that you had with him, and or as his biggest, if not his biggest cheerleader, that through that perspective or through fatherly advice? And, I remember reading as I followed you guys that I think it was your dad that might have said that you were quoted as saying that your dad said, if you want to win, you have to figure it out.
Yep.
Was there any discussions that you had with him on, hey, look, okay, let's figure this out. And if you don't, it's okay that there are other avenues in life. But if you do, then, hey, let's continue on that path.
Well, Brooks he's got a lot of Koepka in him. He's pretty stubborn. And,
it's a good and bad quality at the same time.
Yeah, it is. It is. And he always, said that's all he ever wanted to do was be a professional golfer. And I used to argue with him that you should have a plan B, and he always would tell me if you have a plan B, then plan A will never work. And he did get a little tired or frustrated at one point over there. It's not easy. That's not an easy path to take because you're, traveling to strange countries with different cultures, different languages, different cuisine,
different travel, different language, different everything,
transportation, everything.
Right.
And it will wear on you. More so if the golf isn't well than it is if it's going well. You can deal with all the other issues. And I think he just got a little bit tired. And fortunately for him, that he didn't spend as much time as people think over there. He went over there in the summer after he graduated from college, and spent that summer and fall over there, and then he went back in the spring, and that's where he won the 3 Challenge Tour events and got the immediate promotion up to the European Tour. So here it was in May, in April and May, he was on the Challenge Tour, and by mid to late May, he was already on the European Tour through the thick of the season, and was guaranteed not just that season, but the following year. So it freed him up a little bit, and in the fall, he won the tournament in Turkey, which got him, the next 2 years on the European Tour. But what that did, it also got him sponsors invites here in the U.S. So the very first tournament that he got in was the first tournament of the year. It was called the Safeway Open out in Napa Valley. And he had the lead with 9 holes to go. And unfortunately, he didn't close it out, but it got him, more invites. And he eventually turned that into the special temporary membership when he came in tied for 4th at Pinehurst in the U.S. Open. And so he earned his PGA Tour card, and he technically never went back to Europe and played on the European Tour. And, Chase took the same route and went over there, and took him a little bit more time. That summer and fall, he did okay, nothing great on the Challenge Tour. And then he went to Q school both here and for European Tour, got through first stage at both, went over for second stage in Europe and got through. So he had to withdraw because the next day it was starting here, but he was in the final stage to try and get his European Tour card 6 days later. So he stayed over there, didn't get his card, got on the Challenge Tour and had a great season, finished top 10, got promotion to the European Tour. But he didn't have a success on the European Tour that Brooks did. And I think it was wearing on him. And he eventually lost his card at the end of the year. But, you know, when you're traveling, you know, and living in a hotel 7 days a week, and if things aren't going well, those walls have a tendency to talk back to you.
Yes, they do.
And you know, you're there by yourself. There's no one to talk to, and it can be difficult. And I think it wore Chase down. And he said, "Look, I want to make you. I want to try and play on the Korn Ferry Tour." And so he went to Q school. Well, actually, a year ago. This month, and unfortunately he got into final stage, but didn't do well enough to get guaranteed starts. So, you know, he's, with the COVID situation, there's no Q school this year, so he has to wait till next year to try and go out and get full status.
You know, I used to tell people when I was playing professionally, and they would say, "God, you play professional golf. It's got to be the greatest thing ever." I said, "Well, it can be when you're playing good, and it is. But when you're playing bad and you're for me, it was, let's say, 1,000 miles away from anybody you know, and in your both your son's cases, it's 3,000-4,000 miles away from anybody you know. As you mentioned, those walls are closing in on you. It can be sometimes the most difficult thing that you're going through, because you have this passion for what you're doing, and it's not working, and everything that you try doesn't seem to help the situation, and it becomes a very difficult situation that you're in. And to your point, and I'm not going to call it your family model, but as I was reading up on your family, you know, and that if you want to win, you got to figure it out. It's like a rite of passage, right? Otherwise everybody would be there if it was simple.
And you know what, Chase gave it a good shot over there, and you know, he got to travel the world. I mean, he was 26 years old, and you know, he'd been all over Australia and, you know, South Africa and all over Europe and Dubai and Saudi Arabia and Kazakhstan. I mean, he's been to more countries than I'll ever visit. And, you know, we enjoyed traveling over to Europe to watch him play. But he said, "Look, my heart's not in it. I want to play here in the United States." Mm-hmm. He said, I want you to support me in that. And we said, "Hey, if that's what you want, we're all for it," you know. You know, everybody can relate. I mean, if you're in sales and you're not doing well, pressure builds. The deeper you get into your year, you better start selling stuff, or otherwise it's your job. And, you know, golf is a job for them. You know, for everybody else, it's fun, it's recreation. But that's their job. And if you're not doing well at it, you know, it can be brutal.
You know, the way I used to explain it to people when they'd say, "God, you play pro golf, that's got to be the best thing in the world." And I'd say, "Okay, let me explain it to you this way." And I'd always ask them, because they were usually guys older than me, and I'd say, "Are you married?" And they'd say, "Yeah, you know, I'm married 10 years or whatever, you know, how many years they've been married." And I said, "Okay, what was more fun, dating your wife or being married to her?"
Yeah.
Right. But, and that's not knocking marriage in any way, shape, or form. It's just like marriage is day in, day out. Very similar. Okay, somebody might knock me on this on social media or in some chat room, but golf, when you're playing golf professionally, as you mentioned, you're playing 7 days a week, and then you're to the next venue, and you're playing 7 days a week, and it just continual. It's nonstop. In the same way that marriage is on a daily basis, you have to learn how to live with somebody. And I can remember my mom always saying that her mom told her, you know, you can be in love with somebody. It's a different thing to be around them every day. And when you're dating, if things don't go well, let's say you get in a little argument with your girlfriend or your boyfriend, okay, you can go to your separate houses or condos or apartments or wherever you're living and give it time to stew or to calm down, and then you get back together and everything's, hunky dory again. But when you're married or when you're doing something daily, that you don't have that luxury anymore. And,
No,
and, and once I said that to some people, that they looked at me completely different. Like, holy shit, yeah, I get it, kid.
there's a lot of similarities, um, and like I said, it's they're out there, they're grinding, they're giving all they got, but and there's certain times when it's just not going well. The putts are lipping out rather than going in the hole.
Mm-hmm.
How long can you continue to do that and miss a cut by one until it's just eating at you, and then you're telling yourself, well, I'm obviously not good enough to make a cut.
That's basically what happened
Not
to
good
me.
enough to win, or whatever it might be. And that's hard to deal with. 'Cause like I said, you're going to fail many more times than you're going to succeed.
I can remember the summer of 2005, figured 12 weeks, June, July, August, and I was playing the mini tours most. So I did a few Mondays and I missed too many qualifiers by one to go back into that and rehash that. But to miss, I think I missed the 12. Well, we played 10 weeks out of the 12 in the summer. We had 2 weeks off, and I missed 8 of the 10 cuts by a stroke or less. And the rides home, with you just rack your brain on how many times that you lipped out, or you could have cut a stroke or two off your round and made the cut. It's excruciating.
Yep.
But not to dwell. I don't need to go back down that avenue. One thing I wanted to ask you is what was and I had it. One of my cousin's sons was let's say he played in Indiana, and that would have been about 6-7 years ago. So not quite the same age as your boys, a little bit younger. But why did they take the European Tour avenue instead of looking at the Corn Ferry Tour here? And I don't. It's changed names so many times. I don't remember what it would have been when they were playing. What was the thought process behind, hey, let's go to Europe instead of staying here and taking the shot?
Well, it was funny when Brooks was coming out of college. He qualified for the U.S. Open as an amateur out at the Olympic Club in San Francisco.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time, he was dating a girl from Florida State that had graduated ahead of him, and she was playing professional soccer in Sweden. So he wanted to go over and visit her. I think he hadn't seen her for like 6 months, and go see her before he started his grind. And his agent said, well, if you're going over there, I can get you some starts on the Challenge Tour. And Brooks was like, yeah, great. What am I going to do until Q School starts in September? I got to have a place to go play. And the only you could do over here was mini tour events or Monday qualifiers. And he's like, yeah, I'll do that. And so his agent, Blake, got him some starts on the Challenge Tour, and he won one of them, but gave him full status on the Challenge Tour. And unfortunately, he missed out on Q School back here, and that was the last year you could go straight from Q School to the PGA Tour.
Right.
And he missed. I caddied for him at first stage, and he shot like 17, 18 under, came in third. Easily made it through the second stage, but went out to Texas, and he missed by 2. The same event that Jordan Spieth missed by 2. But Jordan had, earned the right to get sponsors invites based on his amateur, career, and so he was getting starts here. We're excited to go back to Europe.
And I don't want to cut you off, but I got to tell everybody that second stage is so important, because if you get to final stage, at a bare minimum, you have some status on what is now the Corn Ferry Tour.
Yeah.
And a lot of people might not know that. That's why getting through second stage is probably one of the most important things for an up-and-coming professional golfer.
It is, and I experienced that this past year with Chase, but the problem is you get to final stage and you miss by a few shots like he did, and yet he can't get starts out there on the Corn Ferry.
Mm-hmm.
And so here we are a year into it, and he's still on the outside looking in. So
It's changed a little bit since I was playing, 15, 14
yeah,
years
but
ago.
yeah, it's great. He can say he's got career status, but yeah, he still has a hard time getting into tournaments.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's all based on positioning, and if all of a sudden somebody gets out there and ends up making a cut or doing well in the tournament, they'll jump them, they'll leapfrog them.
Yeah, is there still a reshuffle?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So
Yeah,
for
they do that.
anybody listening, that's all right. Let's just say, for example, out of the 150 guys, and I'm just using an example that Chase is 120th. So let's say he's towards the bottom. If he comes in second in an event, he moves way up the list, and as they reshuffle the status of the players, Chase now is in the top 50 or 60, and he's going to get in the majority of the events the rest of the year. And right, I think that's still how it works. And you can correct me if I'm wrong, Bob.
Yep. No,
Okay.
it's based, um, where you come out of, Q school, but then you also have the guys that are coming off the PGA Tour or the people that played on the Corn Ferry the year before.
Mm-hmm.
They're guaranteed starts, so they're all ahead of you, and you're just, you're hoping there's a tournament where not everybody's going to play and you can get in, and then you have to play well once you get in that one tournament to maybe open the door for, another opportunity. Where the other guys, if they can miss 6-7 cuts in a row and go out and have a good week and, keep playing. If you're on the outside looking in, you got to keep playing well every week just to try and get another opportunity.
I think that's the hardest thing for some people who know golfers, professionals who are very good. I used to get this question a lot. I was like, why don't you have your tour card? And it's like, well, when you're coming up, you have to play well at certain points. And if you don't, you've got to wait for that opportunity to circle back around again. And those who do, it's not like everybody's not working their ass off to play well at the right time, but it's just like life. That you can work your ass off for a presentation, and if it flops, okay, you're not gonna get that account. You got to wait for another account to come around again. It's very similar, but to use the business analogy is if people are established sales representatives and they've had a history of getting accounts. If they swing and miss at one account, then the company's going to say, okay, let's go to the next one. But if you're up and coming, they might say, hey, you're going to sit in the sidelines until the next time. Well, the same thing happens if you're playing professional golf.
Yeah, I tell everybody it's like, it's great. You're a second round pick as a wide receiver, and you make the whatever professional team, and first game they throw a pass your way and you drop it.
Mm-hmm.
And you come over to the sideline and they're like, come back out and try out for us again next year. What do you mean? Well, you just missed out on first stage.
Yep.
Your whole year's shot. You don't get to go to game 2, or you don't get to go back in and everything. You get one shot. If you don't advance through first stage, you get to second stage, or second stage to get to final stage, or final stage. You're out for a year playing mini tours, trying to wait for that next opportunity. And when that opportunity comes, you better be sharp. Otherwise, you're back another year.
And the pressure for that's excruciating.
Sure. And you know what? And like you said, as you get older, you get into a relationship, maybe you get married, maybe you have kids, and then, that pressure just builds because, how are you going to support your family?
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to do that on the mini tours because you're paying to enter a tour. We're all putting, $400 or $500 in to go play today. So we're playing against each other's money. It's, there's not a sponsor putting the money up.
No.
All the players are putting it up. And so it's dog eat dog. If I do well, I've just taken the money out of your pocket, or vice versa. So,
what's crazy is guys, and you've been privy to it with your boys, but guys will sit there and while they're playing, they will try to beat the shit out of each other. They're not going to. Nobody that I know in golf is going to cheat. I'm sure there's people out there who do. You're going to do everything you can to beat the guy that's a friend of yours. But afterwards, you're going to say, "Hey, come on, let's go have a beer," or you're going to have a group of guys go to dinner, and off the course, you're the best friends in the world. It's to me sometimes it seems to me the most dysfunctional thing that there is, but it's also one of the coolest things that I experienced, where you're doing that, and then afterwards you're like, hey, come on, you want to come over to my room and drink a 6-pack? Right?
Yeah.
What do you think
Well,
Chase needs to get over that hump? Because he's come close. He's played a number of tour events, as you mentioned earlier. He and Brooks they top fived, and Chase was that might have been before we came on, but Chase was 3 under on the last 5 holes. He obviously has his brother as a great source of information, but is there anything that Dad can do to help, or that you try to do, in that he's right there, he's on the cusp?
yeah, he played in the 3M up in Minneapolis earlier this year, and on Sunday he had the low round 63. On a Sunday at a PGA Tour event. So, can he do it? Yes, he can.
Mm-hmm.
He needs to be more consistent about it. He doesn't do it as consistently as, say, his brother does. So he's got enough game. I think it's just it's such a fine line between those that aren't there versus those that are, and he just needs to play well at the right time. And, if that's going back to Q school next year, playing well at final stage, getting himself out there where he has a job week in, week out, not on the outside hoping that I might get in the one coming up in a month from now, or maybe, one tournament here and there.
Mm-hmm.
Having the opportunity to set a schedule makes a big difference, because the pressure's not there that I have to perform this particular week, because I may not get another chance. As opposed to, all right, I did okay, but finished 30th, but, I got next week. And, if I get hot next week, then I can set myself up for the whole next year, and then also guarantee me a spot. If I don't make it up to the PGA Tour, but I've got guaranteed status on the Korn Ferry the following year. So it's a fine line. And, I have to just keep supporting him as a father and tell him to keep working hard, be prepared. So when that opportunity does come up, you can take advantage of it.
With what Brooks has been able to accomplish so far in his career, and it's such an amazing level that very few have achieved. 4 majors basically in 2 years, one of a handful of players to top 4 in all 4 majors in the same year. How does he continue to improve on that, be it managing injuries or navigating, really more focused on navigating something that not many people have ever had to deal with, which is kind of unparalleled success and the mindset required to focus on a goal and disregard distractions? Is that something that you as his dad can help with at a very basic fundamental principle level? Or is that something that comes from others, like his coaches or the people that he employs on his team? Or does that go back to y'all's kind of, I would call it the Koepka motto of, hey, you got to figure it out?
Well, I think it goes back to that motto, he's got to figure it out. As his father, I don't think I can really help him there, because I've never played at the highest level.
Mm-hmm.
I've never experienced that. Can I, talk to him about being mentally tough? I can give him all the advice I want, but I think he's bypassed me in that regard. So I don't know that he can, listen to me. I don't even know that some of the people on his team can make a difference. I think it's something that he has to deal with himself.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously he's once he won that first major, it made it much easier to win the second one, because he knew he could do it. And he's won them in different ways. He's won them from coming behind. He's developed a big lead and watched it almost go away at Bethpage Black. But he held on, and I think he's more proud of that when it was slipping away, that he was able to pull it back, rein it back in. So he's done it all kinds of different ways, and I think you have to appreciate each one on how he's done it. And just for him, I think there's always people questioning, oh, you got hot for a little bit, you were a flash in the pan, it'll never last. So I think that drives him to want to get more. Because people always say to me, why is he so good in majors but not in other events? And, I remember the media asked me that question on Saturday night up at Bethpage Black. They said to me, why is it your son is about to win his fourth major yet he's only won, 2 other times in regular events? And, I looked at them all and I said, how many wins does Jack Nicklaus have? And there's about 20 media guys looking at each other like, I don't know, one guy's like, 70 and I looked at them like, is that right? And they're all looking, I don't know, but I don't know exactly how many.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, how many majors does he have? And every one of them, 18. There's your answer, right? Tell me the guy that's got 15 wins on the tour and 0 majors. Can you name them? No. But you can name the guy that, history is remembered by major champions. And the fact that he's got 4 puts him in elite status. I remember when he won his first one, Rich Bean sent him a text and said, welcome to the club.
Mm-hmm.
You're one of 270 members.
Yeah, it's pretty impressive. Throughout the history of the game.
Yes. Now, obviously, that number has grown because more people have won since then. But at the time, it was like 270. And looks like, you realize there's only 270 people that have ever won a major? And I was like, no. I mean, I'm shocked.
How many have won 4? I mean, that list gets small
very
quickly.
And so I think that's what drives him to, work hard, in the off season. This past year has been a difficult year for him with the injuries.
Mm-hmm.
He can't get into just any PGA Tour event because he didn't finish in the top 125 of the money list, even though he's ranked in the top 12 in the world.
Jeez, that's
he
crazy,
can get in. He can get into majors and WGCs that are based on world ranking, but he can't get into next week's PGA Tour event because he didn't finish up there because he was hurt most of the year. So,
mm-hmm.
He's got the drive to, work hard. So when he does get into a tournament, he does well, gets himself back where he can play anywhere he wants.
As parents know their kids better than anybody. And, you can have world-class trainers and coaches and all those things, but I don't think anything can ever supersede a parent knowing their child, because you raised them, right? You watch them grow. You know the nuances. You know the ins and outs. Having somewhat of a basic understanding of that, what do you think that each of your boys needs to improve at? Not necessarily to just for Brooks to win another major or Chase to win on the PGA Tour, but just overall as an overreaching. Hey, if you sat them each down and say, "Hey, Brooks, if you did this, I think that it would take you that you would improve." And Chase, if you did this, I think you would improve.
I've always said with Chase, I think he cares too much. He can hit a great shot, but he's never satisfied with it because he thinks it should have been better.
Mm-hmm.
And I think sometimes if you just don't care as much, he'll be upset if he hits it to 15 feet because he thought he should have hit it to 6 feet. And, Brooks has got a little more of a laid back attitude of, all right, well, I'll just go make the 15-footer, he just doesn't care. And so I've always said Chase needs to have a little bit of Brooks in him of not caring so much because I think when you care too much, you beat yourself up too much. So
mm-hmm.
That's what I would say, Chase needs to do. With Brooks, I think maybe he does need to focus in a little bit more on some of the regular events. And the reason being is, I'm not saying he doesn't focus hard enough, but if you create, bad habits, they can show up at the wrong time. And I sometimes think that he maybe isn't focused enough, and he misses a shot here or there, and that could show up again, at the wrong time, maybe in a major or something. So, I'd like to see. I think winning breeds winning. So I think it'd be nice to see him win more. Just tour events, and obviously like to see him win majors. But I think if he could win more tour events, that would help him elevate his game even more for the majors.
That's interesting, because one of the guests I had on early on when I started the podcast was Preston Green, and Preston is not, aside from being the strength and conditioning coach at University of Florida, Preston was the protege of Charles Poliquin, who is a world-class trainer, trained a lot of world champions and Olympians, worked a lot, I think, with the Chicago Blackhawks, and he was in a whole new level of sports trainings. And one of the questions I asked Preston was, is it better to improve your weaknesses or get better at your strengths? And he said, without even hesitation, he said, well, if you improve your weaknesses, your strengths will get stronger naturally. And I see exactly what you're saying, is that if not to shift focus from Brooks to winning majors to winning tour events, because who knows what that does to him in the majors, right? His recipe right now is very good, and that's a very delicate balance that you're playing with at, as we talked about, a level that not many people have achieved in the history of the game. But improving his week in, week out focus, because I think he caught some flack for this by one of his interviews at a regular tour event, saying, I focus on the majors, and the media just kind of chastised him for, well, you don't focus on the regular events, which is unfair to him. But I think, and this is just an outsider's, this is not a critique by any means, but improving what would be considered at his level somewhat of a weakness, that he's at his talent level and everything that he brings, to not compete and win more regularly on a weekly basis. If that were to improve, it might improve his overall game. But again, who's going to mess with the success that he's had? Nobody on the planet. I don't care who they are.
Well, I use that when the kids when they were younger, and I've always done it this way. I go watch every tournament, and I'd make my notes, and I might, we might be riding home, and we talk about everything, and said, you did a great job doing this, whatever it might be. The one weakness that I noticed was your bunker game wasn't very good.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, so before the next tournament, you probably need to put a little more time in on your bunker game. And, or maybe, you three putted too much, or, you need to work on speed control, or whatever it might be. And my whole theory is I wanted to point out an area of weakness, because I used to always tell them, if you can take a weakness and make it a strength, you're hard to beat.
Right.
Anybody, if I'm a great putter and all I do is putt, well, that's great. I'll always be a great putter. But if I never address the fact that I can't drive it in play, I'll never become great. So you've got to always identify a weakness, work on it, make it a strength. And if I have no weaknesses in my game, you're going to have a hard time beating me.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think you always have to look at areas where you can improve.
I didn't even sniff the level that Brooks has accomplished, but I would try to tell people that ask me, I said, look, when you're playing professional golf, the slightest thing can throw you off. In that, and the analogy I tried to use was, if somebody's driving through their neighborhood, and the equivalency would be they're playing with their buddies in their Saturday game. If you're driving at 20, 25 miles an hour in your neighborhood and you run over a 1-inch branch that blew off during the last rainstorm, okay, you feel it when you're driving. if you're at a professional level, and which it would to me would be the equivalent, let's say, driving a high performance car at 150 miles an hour, and you hit that same 1 inch branch, there's a chance that you might not live through that. It's that drastic of a difference. And just to try to give people an analogy on the difference, so it's easy for, I'm sure there's a million armchair coaches out there who say, well, Chase should do this like his brother did, and he'll get to the PGA Tour and he'll start winning. Or Brooks should do this, and he'll win another 3 majors. Yeah, well, that's real easy for somebody to say who has no understanding of the variables involved in what it takes to be at that level.
I think the best thing both of them can do is tune all those things out, and just believe in the process that they're going through. And if they know they're putting all their efforts into getting better, doing the things that they know they need to do, they'll be fine. Listening to too many people, you're going to get too many different thoughts and too many different opinions. And, I think that's a recipe for disaster.
Yes, and they seem to have good people around them, and it's worked in the past. It's going to continue to work. Just in today's world, I think people are too quick to throw aside something that doesn't work out right away. And I obviously the team that Brooks has amassed, and I'm sure Chase utilizes them as well, is pretty damn good.
Yeah, I think they just have to keep focusing and working on the things that they're good at, and then like you said, taking those areas where they need to improve, just putting the time in, and then just going out and perform, and believing in yourself. Believing in yourself is the mental aspect of golf is probably greater than any other sport. But in any sport, if you believe you're the best, you have a chance to be the best.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't believe in the best, you'll never succeed. And you just gotta just keep grinding and moving forward and not question yourself.
We talked a little bit about this before we came on, and I'd like to consider myself a pretty good judge of character, and Brooks really seems to have it from what I've watched of him over the years and been around him, and the people that I know that are still on the PGA Tour. I haven't seen Chase as much, but I think both carry themselves with a lot of dignity and a lot of respect and all the things that you would want someone to be. And I give all the credit to you and their mom and your wife for instilling that. But one thing I really like about Brooks is he doesn't just go along to get along, in that if he thinks that something is not right, he stands up for his belief. And it's so refreshing to see in sports today and in society in general. In other words, he doesn't seem to cower to the good old boy network, be it on the PGA Tour or anywhere else. And he's earned that by his accomplishments and his records, or his record. But that something tells me that he's like that, not just because he's been successful.
Yeah, I mean,
you've obviously known him his entire life. Can you speak a little bit to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think whatever it is you believe in, do it with conviction. And just because other people don't think that way doesn't mean that they're right. If that's what you believe is, stand up for what you believe in. May not be popular. We're not playing a popularity contest.
Mm-hmm.
And he's not afraid to say things and what he believes. Maybe some people look at it the wrong way, and think that that's being arrogant, or oh, you shouldn't say this about this person or whatever. But you know what? If you ask a question, expect an answer.
That's right.
If you don't like the answer, well, don't ask the question.
Like we said earlier, I'm right in a line with you. I agree with you 100% on that one. You're right. If you don't want to hear the answer, then don't ask the question, or at least be prepared to get an answer that you weren't considering.
No doubt.
One thing I want to touch on, and again, we talked about this before coming on, was there was a fair amount of criticism from Brandel Chambly, and I don't bring this up to try to stir up anything. I think you know that that's not the purpose of this podcast. But there were some Twitter discussions for a while that probably weren't any love lost. And I bring this up for a couple of reasons. And one is, as odd as it may sound, I think as a whole, Brandel sometimes means well, but I also think he takes his position maybe sometimes and crosses the line. Not on purpose, but uh, I I appreciate sometimes what he does because he's not cookie cutter. He's not corporate. Much the same way that Johnny Miller was when he was announcing, or Dick Vitale was in the ESPN in the basketball era. They're polarizing, and some people love him, some people hate him. But Brandel also had a platform of the Golf Channel to get his side of the story out. And outside of maybe y'all's own special social media and some interviews of Brooks, maybe your side of the story, your perspective wasn't given as much. There were a couple things. There was one about Brooks losing too much weight and he wasn't going to be able to perform at the level that he had, and the other one was with he and Chase playing in New Orleans. So if it's okay with you, if you'd like to give your side of the story on those topics.
Yeah, I mean, Brandel's paid to get his opinion on the Golf Channel, which I don't know if he has a job now since Golf Channel's gone. So, he may have lost that platform.
Right.
But, he is polarizing. He was always questioning Tiger, critical of Tiger. And, that wasn't popular in the mainstream media. No one else really did that, but he did. And when Brooks came about, he kind of had, I don't want to say taken the same stance, but he was critical of a number of different things that Brooks did. When Brooks lost weight for that photo shoot, he was saying, he's ruining his career and all this and that.
He's messing with success, I think would be the terminology.
And, that's his opinion. And I think sometimes when you say something that is polarizing or controversial, that was really what he was paid to do. That got the ratings up, people talking, whether they like him or they dislike him, the fact that they're talking about him, that he created what he was paid to do. And Brooks didn't have any problem firing back at him. Put the red clown nose on his nose and sent the picture back and everything. I had my issue with him when he questioned whether Chase should have been playing and getting a sponsor's invite into the Zurich Classic in New Orleans. 2 years previous to that, when Chase came out of college, Brooks, being where he was able to invite somebody and invited Chase and got him, a sponsor's invite. They thought it was cool having two brothers playing in a PGA Tour event. And what they do, they finished tied for fifth, and it got Chase into the next event. And there's people that say, well, that's Chase riding Brooks's coattails. Yeah, I get that, but you know what? When you become the number one player in the world, there are certain things that you do get that other people don't. So
it's earned. Yeah, it's well earned.
The way that tournament was, it was, every other day they played alternate shot, and on the other days they played best ball. And so, last I checked, there was 36 holes where Chase was hitting every other shot, and he definitely contributed. He contributed in the best ball portion as well. Literally coming down the stretch, he had an eagle and a birdie in the last 5 holes to help them get to where they finished tied for fifth. So when he was questioned 2 years later about getting a sponsor's invite, that he shouldn't have gotten it, he hasn't earned anything. Well, I guess as a father, I got a little bit, taken back by that, because I was like, well, he did earn his European Tour card. No one gave him that, Brandel, and they did finish tied for fifth 2 years ago. So showed me that they're not just a vanity item out there. They're there to compete and try and win. And I just felt it was unfair that he had criticized Chase on national television when he didn't do the same with others that were getting sponsors invites. And so as a dad, I stood up for my son, and so we went back and forth a little bit on social media, and other media people picked up on that, and I still stand behind it. I don't think Brandel had all the facts, and normally he does. When he takes a stance, he's got the facts to back it up, but I don't think he did there. And I stand behind what I said, but I tell him to his face the same thing.
And watching that whole scenario play out, and I'm sitting there watching it and say, well, what's the problem? Chase has, he's a tour member in Europe. It's not like he's a club pro that has never broken 80. Maybe just to pass his PAT, and that's not to knock on club pros. They do a lot of great things for the game, but their focus is not on playing; it's more on servicing their members. So it's not like he's working at a golf club, and maybe at one time he was a good player in college, but now he's not. I mean, Chase was a world-class player in his own right. It's not like he just picked somebody at random. I thought it was unfair, and I say that here on the podcast, and I'd say that to Brandel if I ever met him. I say, Brandel, I thought that I don't agree with your assessment. And you're right. He is very well read. He does his homework, but in that situation, you're correct. Today, I side with you guys, the Koepka family, and at that time, I sided with the Koepka family. And they had a good finish. It's not like they came in last place.
And I think that week they finished tied for 20th. And to be honest with you, they were at one point they were right up there again in the top five, and they just they hadn't made a bogey, and the whole alternate shot were making it. They actually had the low round at the time on Sunday with 4 holes to go, and they fell back. They made 3 bogeys, and for whatever reason, it happened, and he fell back to 20th, but it was still a respectable showing. So I think that kind of proved that his commentary was inaccurate there, and I think any father would stand up for their son or daughter, just like I did, and I'm proud that I did, and like I said, I'd do it again.
I want to ask you as we come closer to the end here of the time, because I know you've got probably more important things to do than talk to me. But would the ultimate dilemma for you be that Chase and Brooks are both fighting it out for either a PGA Tour title or a major championship? As crazy as that may sound.
People ask me, they said, who would you root for if they were tied coming down to the 18th hole? And I said, I know exactly who I'd root for. And they're like, oh, one son is favored over the other. And I said, no, the one that needs it the most. And in today's situation, Chase needs it more than Brooks. I'd be totally fine if Brooks hooked it into the water and Chase hit it tight and beat him by 1 or 2 shots, because he needs that more than Brooks. So it's not that I love Chase any more than Brooks. It's just, if that opportunity is there, I'm pulling for the one that needs it.
Mm-hmm. And I don't think anybody could fault you. Anybody that has kids, I don't think could fault you for that answer.
No.
One of your tweets that I had found on as I was researching for this show was that you got Brooks once in between majors, and I wanted to ask you, does that mean that that you're one of the few people that has beat the U.S. Open champion?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember what that was. I think somebody had made a comment that he'd only lost like 5 people in the majors.
Yeah, it was like 99.7% of the people he beat in his last 4 tournaments.
Yeah, only 5 people beat him this year, and I kind of jumped in and said something like, "Well, I got him once too," and it was more out of fun or something. I don't play with him. Brooks doesn't play that much, so I don't get to play with him that often. I can't remember what it was, but I just chimed in. It was probably more just to be sarcastic. Sometimes I'm have more fun doing that because obviously I know I can't just go out and beat him. But I think we had a match and he was giving me so many shots or something, and I clipped him, and so I jumped on that opportunity when they were saying not too many people had beat him this year, and I wanted to make sure they knew I did.
A little bit of needling, maybe a little different than when he was 10 years old and birdied the second hole and was smiling coming back. You might not be able to turn it on and give him a good whooping like you did then, but maybe a little bit of social media jabbing just to remind him who's dad and who's son.
Yeah. I think I got in the hole in one in March, and that was my 4th one, and I think I made a comment that I'm 1 ahead now or something like that. Both boys, and then Chase reminded me that he had 4, so I tied Chase, but I'm 1 up on both in that category.
I wanted to ask you about one thing about fatherly advice, and especially when guys are being guys. And one of the cases in point being, I don't remember, it's about a year ago or so when Brooks did the social media swimsuit pulled up like a thong. And he was getting a lot of flack for that, probably more from his guy buddies than anybody else. So do you just roll your eyes and give him a big, WTF when you see him? Or do you just kind of let that, like, oh, shit, I don't know. Okay, he's his own man now. He can do what the hell he wants to.
Yeah, he's an adult. He can make his decisions. I wouldn't have done it, but, that was his choice. And I think, someone said, well, are they going to do a father-son edition? And I said, no, definitely
not. You're not going to be on there with a Speedo, pulling it up your ass crack and trying to get a laugh or two from your fraternity brothers.
Those days are long gone.
And it's probably a good thing that there weren't cell phones and social media back then, because that's the era I'm from as well, and I couldn't even imagine how much trouble I'd be in today if that stuff was around.
Yeah, we'll leave it at that.
All right. We'll leave it in a sealed envelope, never to be opened. What's next for both your boys and the Koepka family? That might be a hard question to answer given the current state of the nation and the world.
Yeah, Chase is going up to play in, I think it's called the Big Money Game up in Orlando the first week in January.
Mm-hmm.
I think winner gets $100,000. So he's going up there to play in that. And then after that, I'm not really sure. He's played some mini tour events and things. He played one down here where he shot 68, 64, and picked up 10,000 for the win about 2 or 3 weeks ago. I know Brooks is going to start playing out in California a little bit. I'm not sure exactly which tournament and everything. We haven't really sat down and talked about his schedule, but he'll play his 20 events or so. Assuming everything continues well with the COVID and everything, play the majors and WGCs, and then select other events. And as far as Chase, keep grinding, and he's been trying to Monday qualify. He does have the Travelers coming up this year. He Monday qualified for that last year, but when Brooks's caddy got tested positive for COVID, they had Chase withdraw, so they gave him an invite this year. So
I remember that.
He has that one to look forward to in June. And other than that, he'll just keep trying to Monday qualify for PGA Tour events or Korn Ferry events, and hopefully, be successful and play his way on to getting more starts on the Corn Ferry.
Well, given the way after talking with you and listening to the way they were raised and the competitive nature of both, and even the differences of both, that everybody's got to go through that labyrinth. And I'm sure, given his principles that you instilled and the fundamentals, that I'm sure he's going to get through that. And even when things seem the most meager, that's when character seems to show itself the most.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, it's easy to hold your chin up high when things are going well, but when things aren't, that's when you find out the true character of somebody. And I have all the faith and confidence that Chase will come through this, and just taking him a little bit longer. And he's not the first not to get come out of being a college All-American and go straight up, to the PGA Tour. I mean, some of these guys, it's unbelievable what Matthew Wolff and Victor Hovland and Colin Morikawa have done. But they're few and far between. There's
right.
Many guys that haven't made that leap, and for whatever reason, Chase is grinding that out. But I'm confident that he will get there, in due time.
Yeah, I don't think, I forget who it was who said it, but you can never connect the dots looking forward. It's always backwards.
Yeah.
Yeah, but before we're getting into some rapid fire here, but one question I've got to ask you, because you're one of the few people that I know that has a front row seat to something like the Ryder Cup. In your opinion, what is it that is keeping the U.S. from doing exceptionally well that everybody expects them to do in the Ryder Cup? What are they missing?
Well, I had the answer.
Or could we do an entire podcast on that?
They brought me in as a consultant. It's just not making putts. It really is. And it's such a fine line. I think we have as much talent here in the U.S. as Europe, if not more. They do things different over there. They do travel together, and I believe there's more camaraderie over there. And then, too many of the guys are on their private jets flying around. I don't know that and I want to say we don't have as much passion as they do. As a judge, that's an individual thing inside that no one can really say, but they seem to just really thrive on, I don't want to say they're the underdog, but they've always kind of been that underdog, and they've always taken that mentality. And maybe if we just took more of an underdog mentality, that maybe we'd have more success.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, hopefully the guys can get that turned around, and it's been great theater, and it'd be nice to see that them get at least for us in this country to see that pendulum swing back to our side a little more.
No doubt.
All right,
it's an unbelievable experience, and the opportunity is cool. It's phenomenal.
Let's wrap up with some rapid fire. I got 9 questions for you, just like the back 9. I like to think they're fairly simple, but somewhat challenging in nature. If there was a Ryder Cup for the members of the current Ryder Cup team's parents, and you were on the team, since they established a walk-up song for each player, what would your walk-up song be?
Not good songs.
And this might be a more difficult answer for you in the era that you grew up in, the rock and roll era.
Here I am, baby. I am.
That's a pretty good one. If you could play any course in the world on a daily basis, which one would it be?
I had to say Augusta National. I've always loved the place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that no one's going to argue with you on that. Excluding your sons, which player would you most like to caddy for?
Oh, you know, I oh, never thought of that. I would say gotta be somebody that has fun out there. I'll be honest with you. I'd say Bubba. You know why? Because you just never know. I mean, he doesn't see shots like everybody else, and I think it would just be fun to be out there and you're going, okay, you got this shot in.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh no, I'll hook it 30 yards. Okay, go ahead. I just love to watch how he would do it. I think that'd be fun.
It'd be pretty cool, and I've got to get a number of people have told me that I should get Ted Scott on, and that they would help me do so. So
Yeah.
that would be, he's earmarked. So if Ted hears this, Ted, I'll be reaching out to you soon. Let's see. What would be your superpower?
I'd say vision.
I think that'd be
My
hard to
vision.
argue with what you've done with your two boys. Let's see. Couple more. The last book that you read.
Oh, jeez. I don't read much.
It could be a magazine too. We'll throw that in there for you.
Wow, can't even think. You know what? Oh, I know. I read one about on the city of Atlantis where I live. Somebody wrote a book about the history of the city and the people that were here from the beginning. So
Mm-hmm.
that was the last book that I read.
That's a pretty cool one. If you had an emoji on your club, what would it be?
Um, it definitely wouldn't be a rocket because I don't hit it very far anymore. Hopefully, a fire on my putter.
Hey, that's not a bad one. Let's see, a couple more. If they made a movie about your life, what actor would play you?
Dude, hopefully not Rodney Dangerfield. Wow. I say George Clooney.
I'm sure the missus would approve.
Yeah, probably.
Biggest pet peeve?
Dishonesty.
Yeah, I'm right with you on that one. All right, the last one. Excluding your either of your boys, greatest of all time, golfer.
Well, it's definitely Tiger. I mean, some of the shots that he's pulled off and what he's accomplished. You know, kudos to Jack. I just don't think the fields were as deep as they are now.
Mm-hmm.
So I definitely believe that Tiger is the GOAT.
It's a fair argument, and I say this pretty much at the end of every podcast. I think I've had your 35th or 6th one. I think it's pretty much split 50-50, and both sides can make their fair arguments.
Yep, no doubt.
Well, Bob,
both great.
All the mutual friends we have told me that it would be great talking to you, and it's exceeded even those expectations. I can't thank you enough for coming on. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I did too. It was fun, and I enjoy golf is my passion now. I played earlier today with some friends, and so I always enjoy talking golf. And anytime that I can talk about my two boys, I'm always open.
Well, in our talk before we came on, and you had mentioned when you like to make a good first impression when you play with somebody the first time, that you usually throw a couple birdies at them. I'll remember that when you get up this way and we get the chance to go out and play, and we'll have a better negotiation on who gets strokes and where. Not now that I know that I have that inside information, and then we'll go have the drinks and the dinner afterwards. But definitely got to do that when you get up here next.
Look forward to that. That'd be fun.
Awesome. It's been a great night. I really appreciate your time. Say hi to your boys for me, and I wish you and your family all the best.
Yep, same here.
Have a wonderful night.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much for listening to today's show. If you enjoyed it, you can find more information on today's episode and other topics at golf360.blog. There you'll find the show notes and links related to this episode, as well as any other episode that we've done so far to date. If you're interested in improving your game and would like to learn more from yours truly by taking a private lesson, a half-day or multi-day school, club or putter fitting, you can reach me through the blog site or by email, pete@golf360.blog. So some of you may be asking, what is the golf paradigm? All you have to do is click on the homepage while on my blog site to discover how you can start playing better than you ever thought possible. Or you can simply sign up, again, on the blog page for my instructional videos where I give regular tips on all areas of the game to include the swing, club design and fitting, health, fitness and nutrition, the mental aspects, and equally as important, the integration of all those things together. I'm also on social media, and you can find me at The Golf Paradigm. That's Paradigm, and I'm on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel, also under the same name, The Golf Paradigm. Facebook is usually the best way to reach me for questions and or comments, and I look forward to hearing what all of you have to say. This podcast is brought to you in part by Old South Golf Links. A short ride across a bridge from Hilton Head Island is one of the area's finest golf courses and a hidden treasure. Set up on towering pines and ancient oaks with sweeping marsh vistas, truly makes Old South Golf Links a one-of-a-kind golfing experience. The Clyde Johnson design was named one of the top 10 new public courses when it opened, and it also takes full advantage of the natural beauty of the Low Country. Old South is a fun and unique challenge for golfers of every skill level and a favorite of both locals and visitors. Whether it's your first time here or you're a regular, you'll be treated and feel like family. From the bag drop to check-in at the fully stocked pro shop with both men's and women's apparel, to breakfast or lunch before or after your round, the staff is always ready and willing to help. Experience for yourself why Old South is one of the premier golf courses in the Hilton Head area and why it will quickly become a favorite of yours too. Visit them in person or online at www.oldsouthgolf.com, or to make it tee time, simply call the pro shop at 843-785-5353.